kingdoms, and that is the title of today's lesson. It is May 6th, 2021. It's the third day of our 10th unit. The objective today is to analyze the survival and reproductive success of organisms in terms of their behavioral, structural, and reproductive adaptations. So we're going to talk about several different kingdoms that are non-animals, but that have specific adaptations that allow them to survive. They give them a better chance at survival. It's not super important. I don't really think it'll come up much on the EOC. We're going to have another lesson tomorrow to talk about the animal kingdom specifically, and we'll go into greater detail about their adaptations. And then we'll have just one more day of new material on Monday, and then we'll take the Unit 10 exam on Tuesday, and then we'll kick it into review in high gear. All right, so be ready. Make sure that you all are, well, we're actually going to have a packet for you all that we're going to hand out, and it's going to be an opportunity for you all to take some strong notes. Okay, so I think that'll be helpful, having something you can actually write down instead of just typing things or whatever. Yeah, so let's start with this very first quiz. I think it's this one. Let's see. So I will send a link to the chat. You can click on the link that I just sent to the chat, or you can go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the game code, excuse me, 779178. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I think folks will still be able to join once we've started. Yes, you can still join. If you haven't yet joined, you still can do that while the game has started. Keep that in mind. Okay, so we have a few more people finishing up. Okay. Okay, so we're just waiting on a couple more. Melissa, and I'm on my phone for class. I was doing it. Kick me out. Okay, no worries. We will jump into one more quiz, and then our lesson will be short, so you all will have time to do the assignment today. We've already got 50 minutes left in class, so if we're done with this in 10 minutes, then I think we can be done with the lesson in 10 minutes, and then you all will have 30 minutes to do the assignments. So this is the new quiz. You click on the link in the chat, or just go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the game code 845065. This one is going to be about meiosis and mitosis. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Tay. Thank you, Josue. Send the link one more time. Thank you, Paris. Oh, Paris is here. Didn't see Paris was here. I did see Paris is here. Thank you, Deasia. Thank you, Dijon. Shanti. Thank you, Astrid and Melissa. Hopefully it doesn't kick you out. If so, no worries. All right. Thank you, JT. About 2 more minutes to finish up. 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's just make it through this quick lesson. I'm not even sure that there's much that I want you all to write down here, but tomorrow we'll talk about the animal kingdom and there will be a bit more note-taking to do. I don't expect that this will be a large part of the EOC exam, largely because if it were, it would require a lot of, memorization, but the EOC exam doesn't really require that much memorization as much as it requires concept understanding and comprehension. So here, what I'm most interested in you all taking away is that organisms have a lot of different adaptations that allow them to survive in some various and sometimes extreme environments, right, Tay? So we've got to make sure that we're paying attention so that we understand some of these adaptations and how they kind of show up in different ways in different life forms. So this first kingdom that we'll discuss is called the Archaea kingdom. The Archaea kingdom is pretty obscure. You don't hear much about it, but it is similar. Archaea are similar in size and shape to bacteria. Genetically, however, they are much more similar to eukaryotic organisms, which is pretty striking. So they've got these similarities to prokaryotic organisms and to eukaryotic organisms, but we do classify them as prokaryotes. Why do we classify them as prokaryotes, do you think? What makes something prokaryotic? What's the difference between a prokaryotic organism and a eukaryotic organism? Shanti? Sayana? Do you know the difference between a prokaryotic organism and a eukaryotic organism? Prokaryotic is definitely more simple. What else could we say? Okay. Deasia, do you have anything? No. Prokaryotic organisms are missing one very important thing from their cells. Tayshawn, what do you think? What's the important thing that they might be missing from their cells that eukaryotic organisms do have? What's that? One more time. I'm not hearing you. A post? Pulse. Okay. Interesting. So the cell, we're talking about a cell, not an entire organism. Thank you, Ashanti, for clarifying that. So it's not a pulse, but what's kind of like the boss of the cell? The nucleus, yeah. So prokaryotic organisms don't have nuclei. That's the primary difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. The other thing is prokaryotic organisms don't have any cellular, or they don't have any membrane-bound organelles. So that means they don't have a mitochondrion, they don't have chloroplasts, they don't have vacuoles. They are, as Sayana said, very, very simple organisms. Okay, so these archaea, they're prokaryotic because they don't have nuclei. But they are interesting in other ways. So they can get energy and nutrients from a lot of different sources. They can take it from both organic compounds that have carbon and also from inorganic compounds like salts and ammonia that do not have carbon. They can also take energy from sunlight. So they're pretty resilient organisms. And this is what makes them what we call extremophiles, which means that they live in extreme environments, like, we might say like a sulfur volcano at the bottom of the ocean. These are the types of organisms that you would find there. Of course, they are microscopic. They're microorganisms, so they are extremely small. But they have this resilience that allows them to exist in really hot environments and really acidic environments as well. But they also can exist in more neutral spaces, like the human body. We've got some archaea that exist in our microbiome, so in our gut and on our skin, interestingly enough. What's up, Santuan? Thank you for joining us. Then, of course, there are bacteria. Fun fact, all animals rely directly on bacteria for survival. We could not live without bacteria. The reason for this is that they produce a specific vitamin B12, that our bodies are not capable of producing. So we rely on these bacteria to give us this vitamin, which is absolutely essential to our cells' mitochondria. Our cells need this vitamin to go through metabolic processes. Another fun fact, We know that bacteria are extremely small organisms. They're microorganisms, but there are so many of them on the planet Earth. They're one of the most abundant forms of life that if we were to take every bacterial cell and somehow, clump them all together and weigh them, they would weigh more than all the animals on Earth combined. They would weigh more than all the fungi on Earth combined. The only thing that they do not exceed in biomass is plants. So plants, if we were to add up all the plants and their mass on Earth, they would be heavier than the bacteria. We've got a lot of plants on our planet, but bacteria are still some of the most abundant forms of life. It is said that within just a singular square centimeter of space, you can find probably within water, you can find 1 million bacteria. So they're extremely abundant. Of course, most of them are not good. They're not bad. They just kind of are. Bacteria are some of the oldest life forms, and their ancestors were probably the first life forms on the Earth. And they existed about 4 billion years ago. That's a number that most of us cannot even imagine. 4 billion years. And bacteria reproduce asexually, and they can do so rapidly, which means that a bacterial population can double in size in less than 10 minutes. So with the bacteria that are bad for human beings and for other animals, this is also something to be weary of. The fact that they can reproduce so rapidly that an infection can go from being non or undetectable to being life-threatening in a matter of hours. This kingdom, Chromista, is probably something that you have not really heard of before. Chromista is kind of like the catch-all kingdom. So the organisms that are neither animals, nor plants, nor fungi kind of just get tossed into this kingdom. And because of that, it's got a wide variety of diversity. There's a lot of different organisms here. The name Chromista, it actually comes from chrome, which means color. And so these organisms kind of have a distinct brown golden color. They actually do have some use to humans because chemicals can be extracted from them, which will be used to produce things like paper and even ice cream. All right, and then there are the fungi. In fact, I'm just going to skip through this. But one thing we do really need to talk about, though, are the plants. So this is kind of important. So there are 2 plant types. There are vascular plants and there are non-vascular plants. So this might be something that you want to write down. Vascular plants and non-vascular plants. Oh, yeah. Okay. So non-vascular plants, these would be your mosses and your liverworts. They do not have any specialized tissues. What that means is that they don't really transport materials all that well. So these plants tend to be located near the ground where they can absorb a lot of water and as much sunlight as possible. They cover a wide breadth of space, but they don't have anything like root systems, and they don't have these vascular tissues that we'll talk about on the next slide. So these non-vascular plants. They do use seeds as well as spores to reproduce. So the thing to know here is that the adaptation is what allows them to survive. So because they do not have this vascular tissue, they tend to be located near the ground and they cover a big amount of space. That's their adaptation. Then we have vascular plants, which do have those special tissues. They have these weird names. They're called a xylem and a phloem. A xylem, spelled Xylem, is going to allow things to travel upwards from the roots. So the roots are where most of the water and minerals are absorbed from the soil. So in order for the leaves and the flowers and the fruits that are located near the top of the plant, in order for them to get that water and to get those minerals, these vascular plants rely on a pretty complex system of xylem to carry things upward. But we also know that the leaves are the primary site of photosynthesis. So in order for the roots and things underground to get, hi Lisa, for the roots and things underground to get glucose, we rely on another type of tissue called a phloem to carry things downward. So the xylem shoots things up and the phloem allows things to flow back down. All right. And then we can further subclassify the vascular plants. There are two types of vascular plants, angiosperms, and then something called a gymnosperm. Angiosperms have seeds that are protected by fruits and flowers. So their seeds tend to be more internal, harder to reach. As it relates to plants, the seeds are essentially the eggs. The pollen is the sperm. And the fruit is the ovary. The fruit is what provides the nutrients and the protection to the seed. So when we actually eat fruits, the reason they tend to be so sweet is because they are providing that seed with a lot of glucose so that it can be ready for fertilization. The other type of vascular plant is called a gymnosperm. Hello, where's everybody coming from? Oh, you guys had an AP exam? You too, Lisa? How'd it go? What'd you say? Boring. Long? Which test was it? US? Okay. So these gymnosperm seeds, they tend to be located inside of some type of cone. And the cones are there to allow for travel. So they need to be durable and they need to be easily dispersed by the wind. So yeah. So again, we see these adaptations present that allow for survival in under different conditions. Okay. Skipping all this. And then lastly, there are protozoa. I'm not even going to talk about it. We already did this quizzes. So here we are. We've got 22 minutes left. There is an exit ticket. Again, the exit ticket and the warm-up today were taken from 3 standards. They were the standards that we have consistently performed the worst on. So when I look at all of the data, and I can actually show you guys. All right, so we're looking at this data here. This is basically the average of our performances. So it's not any one individual. It's actually all, I have 42 students between this class and my standard class. You can see, in fact, I can even sort it this way. The warm-up and the exit ticket was taken from these 3 standards. Homeostasis continues to be an area where we struggle. I haven't put in the Unit 9 data yet, but evolution, for some odd reason, the evidence for evolution continues to be an area where we struggle. And offspring ratios, so that would be your Punnett squares. Clearly, we need to do a lot more practicing with Punnett squares. It's interesting to me that 2 of these 3 standards are relatively recent. So that's typically where we would see you all performing better because it's stuff that we just learned. But clearly, it's an area of struggle for us. So that's why we've got the warm-up and exit ticket. There are 10 questions total with these 3 standards. And then the other thing to take note of, we've got 2 asynchronous assignments. One of them, the green one, is the most missed questions from our Unit 9 exam. That will be worth 30 formal points. So it's basically a third of a test. So I took 10 questions, the 10 most missed questions from the Unit 9 exam, and I just put them into this assignment. And then what you have to do is kind of justify how you got your answer or how you can arrive at the correct answer. So there is an open-ended question associated with each of the multiple choice questions. The yellow assignment, U10D3, EOC Prep Part 1, is pretty long, but it has a lot of points associated with it. So I do want to make sure that you all are taking that one seriously as well. So please use this time wisely. We've got now about 20 minutes left. That should be plenty of time to get the warm-up and exit ticket done and make some meaningful progress on one of the other assignments as well. So let me know if you need any help, and let's get to it. guess everybody just decided they don't need it.
Have a good one.
See ya. Have a good day.